It is 26 degrees centigrade today. Humidity is 89%. So whatever distribution company you've got, wherever you are, you guys have to do something because this humidity is not smiling. Good morning all the same. Welcome everybody to Sunrise Daily this morning. I'm Chamberlain. What's up?
How can you resist the shot of this iconic landmark, which is significant not just to Muslims in Nigeria, but also to the country as a whole? Bringing you beautiful pictures of the Central Business District, but highlighting the iconic National Mosque with its golden dome. That's what you see right there. Much later today, worshippers will be thronging that institution for worship. Yes, they'll be pouring their hearts out to God much later today. Say about between 12 and 2 p.m. Good morning and welcome. It's a beautiful Friday morning here in Abuja. I'm Mao Yusuf.
Tell me what, actually. Not that you wait till the last minute.
Well, most certainly so. Days like Fridays and Sundays.
Yeah, indeed. And it's always a lovely time. I mean, whenever that time comes. And so that's why almost at every point, at every opportunity that people have, we will always push those messages across that, hey, let's have a little consideration for your neighbor, the person just on your left or on your right, because the fabric of society has got to be properly knit together so that we can all achieve whatever it is that we want or can or should achieve, because together we pull together. And you know what they say about chains. Engineers will know that a chain being as strong as its weakest link. So that's how that should go this morning. So yes, indeed, it's a lovely Friday morning and glad to have you all on Sunrise Daily.
Indeed. Well, we don't know when. We're hoping to see you soon, but just in case you want a little more information on that mosque, it was built in 1984. Yes, it's been here for that long. Chamberlain, would you believe that?
That's interesting. I mean, landmarks all over the country are things we should find a way to preserve.
Indeed.
All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and take you through some of the dailies in a moment. Through some of the dailies, and we're going to start with Blueprint newspaper this Friday morning. Tinubu at Lagos Red Line inauguration. That happened yesterday. So look at the big lead on the front page here this morning. Labour must maintain peace or wait to join 2027 polls. Assures Nigeria will be out of economic problems. Sanwo-Olu urges FG's support for green, purple lines underway. Wow. Interesting.
Well, look at this. I'm looking at Leadership Friday for you. Tinubu hits back at Labour over strikes. That's how they've chosen to couch their own headline. Accuses NLC of playing politics with economic crisis. Says 4 protests in 9 months, unacceptable. I certainly will wait to hear, or will certainly wait to hear what Labour will have to say on this one. This is what you find on the front page of Leadership Friday. Tinubu hits back at Labour over strikes. And you also see just where he made that statement at the launch of the new Red Line in Lagos State.
What you'll also find interesting on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct this morning is that same story, the lead story of the Nigerian News Direct. Join us, or we meet in 2027. By the way, good morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. This is Lagos. Tinubu tells Labour. That's what you can see on the front page right there. And the rider commissions Lagos Red Line rail project, insists Nigeria will be out of economic problems. Red Line rail to transport 750,000 passengers daily. Well, isn't that a little increase? Because what we saw or heard was about 500,000 every day. But hey, what do we know? That's what's you'll find the details of that you'll find on page 4 of the Nigerian News Direct today.
The Guardian newspaper next. Inflation. Now, it's a big story, but sometimes don't know what to make of this story. Citizens turn to condemned expired foods in search of cheaper options. Well, I certainly can't read this with the same verve as I would other stories because it's really, really worrisome.
Turn to what?
Yeah, that's the challenge.
Condemned expired foods in search of...
Yeah, that's the Guardian this morning.
New Telegraph has this on the front page. Passport. Nigerian embassy in Abu Dhabi defies federal government reforms as bribery delay rock renewal process. Machine allegedly moved to Abuja for maintenance. Canada-based Nigerian hails Tunde Ojo's positive drive. The story is on page 2 of New Telegraph.
Taking the nation for a ride. That's the lead story of the Nigerian Tribune this morning, showing how cautions leaders says decentralization is central to incomplete mission of nation being. Find that story on page 12 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Daily Independence is the next one. Protests, strikes, 9 months into new government, unacceptable, ascribed to Tinubu. And then beneath that lead story, go beyond implementation of Oronsaye's report, Obi tells Tinubu.
Well, I'm trying to see now, this Nigeria has this. 3 ISWAP commanders, 80 others wiped out. Nigerian military in fresh onslaught against terrorists. Troops eliminate 974 terrorists, apprehend 621 in February as bandits attack mosque, kidnap worshippers in Zamfara. So the lead story focusing largely on security. Let's leave it there for this Nigeria.
Story of the Daily Times newspaper is this. Tinubu decries frequent labor strikes, vows to end corruption. That's how the Daily Times put its lead story this morning. Details you will find on page 4. And of course, where did he say it? That picture is the location where that story came from, and you find the details on the inside pages. That's the Daily Times newspaper today.
And then we'll end with Business Day. He says 5 lessons for Nigeria as Indians' wealth surge 5-fold. But you know, the key thing about all of this, it's infrastructure development across board, whichever way you turn. It is hugely important that the authorities get a way to focus on some of these scenarios. I couldn't even properly focus on The Guardian here, because if that's the stark reality now, it speaks for itself. It just speaks for itself, because you can have citizens who turn into condemned expired food in search of cheaper options. I mean, they'll just keep stocking them up for people to come get.
Well, usually I know that in supermarkets, because I imagine that might only apply. I know it's a big story. They usually have a big story on Fridays where they've done some investigation. But I also know that in many supermarkets, and this is something that's done, I mean, I've seen it abroad, I've also seen it locally, when maybe a food or something's about to expire, a month to its expiry or a few weeks or days to expiry, they have a special shelf where they keep those items and slash their prices so they can quickly go. Now, I do not know if that's what The Guardian is referring to, but if more and more people are going to those shelves in search of those items, because they're usually significantly cheaper than the real things that are on the shelves, on the conventional shelves, if that's what they're referring to,
well,
it's certainly a sign of the times, Jimberley.
I almost assumed that was the case when upon
reading the story.
Reading the sight and seeing.
But that's not what they're talking about.
Because there are FMCGs here. There are FMCGs on the front page. So it's not the same thing.
What's FMCG, sorry?
Fast-moving consumer goods. You see yam, tomatoes,
that certainly cannot
things
be
that are expiring. So that's not it.
That certainly
All
cannot
right.
be it.
That wraps it up with the dailies here this morning. So we're going to come back to you with a lead focus in just a moment. Stay on with us. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, yes, indeed. We'll be talking about the power sector, and we're turning our attention to the recent launch, wonderful activity that transpired in Aba in the southeast. And we're joined this morning by Professor Barth Nnaji, Chairman of Geometric Power Limited. Good morning, Prof, and thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed. Congratulations, Prof, for this particular feat. I mean, it's something that is going to be, or that already is and will continue to be, I reckon, at least a point of reference. Several institutions, individuals will be looking at your staying power 20 years on, and this is here. Perhaps we could even start by asking you, how did you stay on course? Because 10 years, 15 years down the line, many would have thought, not sure this is going to happen.
Yes, thank you so much. I can tell you it's been quite a journey, but once we got started, there was really no going back. So it's just like if you're on a 100-kilometer journey and you've gone maybe 70% of it, you have to finish. Because you look backwards, you think that there's so much to lose in going back. So I am quite happy that we're able to start, go through it and complete.
But if other people, because I mean, the sector still a lot of areas and that people can come into play, from what you see at the moment, is it likely or will investors, groups, would they face this kind of challenge if they wanted to do a similar thing in the future?
Maybe not. Well, this is a proof of concepts. When we started, there wasn't even power reform. There was no private company in play. And so we were the first to start this journey. So perhaps the lessons from our experience would make it easier for others to navigate faster. So I believe that it shouldn't take the next 20 years for the next equivalent of ABBA IPP to come on stream.
Well, this certainly hasn't come easy, Prof. I mean, but I'm sure looking at the smile on your face and also seeing just how, residents are reacting. People in Aba have been reacting to this. On Twitter, we've been hearing how, I think that's X now, platform X. I really need to move my mind away from Twitter. They've been telling us how they've had 48 hours uninterrupted. I imagine by now
Already.
It would have been increased to 36 hours uninterrupted power supply.
Ooh.
That certainly must give you some satisfaction. But as a journalist who has been, interviewing for a while, I know this has come at a cost. And I remember the controversies that trailed geometric power when you were Minister of Power and how at the end of the day you had to resign. When you look back at how far you've come and this day and what residents are saying, how big a cost would you say it has been to you personally to be able to achieve this?
Well, the cost is in different ways, I would say. My gray hair is part of the cost, so you can see from it, if you measure 20 years on, I didn't have, I've lost so much in that regard. But really, I would say that the various obstacles that we encountered um, uh, gave us strength to continue to progress. In the end, we're able to arrive at this point. The people of Abia celebrating that. That's what gives us a lot of joy, because that's what we set out to do. We set out to build a reliable power infrastructure that will endure time. Not something that is just start and stop. It is a project that is perpetual in its design. And that's it.
For you, this has been all worth it. It's been worth the cost.
Yes, it's worth the cost.
I know my colleague spoke about challenges and how he believes that perhaps other people who seek to put up such an infrastructure in any other state might not need to go through all of the hurdles that you've crossed. Would you share with us some of the biggest hurdles that you've had to cross in bringing this to realization?
There are some that I don't want to talk about. Yes, but there are some that I would say the government recognizing that a project of this nature is not about the individual doing it, but it's a national project, is very, very important because we tend to have the attitude in Nigeria: why should you be the one doing it? Why should I give you this? And it could just be a piece of paper that is useful for making the project work. So such things are the sort of obstacles that I encountered. I would say that we are yet in Nigeria to learn how to support private sector investment. We have to be able to do it because government has a critical role to play in a lot of projects of this nature. Major infrastructure projects require government support, and we are not good at that yet. It looks like a gift to people when government has to give certain approvals, certain waivers that normally would come easily in a lot of countries that desire progress.
It's really sad to hear when you say that we're not yet at that place where, we can support businesses and support ideas that people have. And I'm wondering, you have also been minister. You've occupied a position where you've had to, be in a position to grant people support. Let me put it that way, grant businesses support. In your own experience as minister, what do you think is responsible for this mentality that that has made us unable to support businesses and ideas as we ought to?
I can tell you, when I was minister, unless the idea is not correct, but once it is correct, we will do everything to support it. We, in fact, will go to try to find people who are capable of doing certain things to come and invest in the power sector. There are projects like Azura. The model that we set up is what made Azura come on stream as fast as it did. So you can imagine that if Azura had to go through the sort of thing that we went through, there would be no Azura today. So, so I think that having been there, knowing what is required of a minister, for example, to enable private sector investment, what you have to do today shouldn't wait till tomorrow. That's very important, and where people keep things waiting. So you have to move fast. In a country that, for example, here we need a lot of power, and we need to move things on as quickly as possible to give support.
Well, I know, when you just said we need power, and yesterday evening I also listened to the interview you granted us on the news at 10, when you talked about how all of the power that this IPP, the geometric power, is going to be providing now to Aba and Abia, about 3 million people, you said, is equivalent to what Enugu Disco is supposed to be providing to the entire Southeast, I think. So certainly, it does appear that there is sufficient power now going to be resident in Aba. What sort of development are you hoping that this would spur in a city we know has been very commercial in nature, very entrepreneurial in nature? What are the sort of developments you're hoping this will bring to bear?
Develop. Let me just say that the amount of power that is going to be domiciled in Aba is roughly about half of the power. Actually, by the time we finish installing the fourth turbine, we have 188 megawatts installed capacity for Aba. That's almost 2/3 of what Enugu Disco, that's 5 states, currently gets. So you can imagine the way to ensure reliability is that you have to have more than just adequate power. You have to have more than the requirements for the area. It must be more. So because you cannot predict peak load for power always. These people can just decide to do something and draw power. But what does it do for the area in terms of development? Significant. We expect that the existing industries that are just trying to survive will come alive and begin to expand, grow. We expect that some of the industries that are dead will wake up. We expect that new industries will come. Some will move from different places. Some will come from outside the country into Aba. The small and medium-scale industries will begin to prosper. There are some products that are made here that can now be made seamlessly, like the garment industry. One of the reasons why you don't find the garment business selling products in various major stores in US and Europe is because they can't make the product repetitively same. They need to be able to make the same size of a garment, the same thousands of them to supply. The leather products industry, for example, very big business area. Shoes, belts, handbags can be made from hides and skins coming from the northern part of Nigeria. Some of the things that used to actually exist in Nigeria, it's not so alien, can begin to come alive again. There was such a time when rubber coming from the Midwest used to make tires in Ibadan and in Port Harcourt, Michelin, Dunlop, and then brake parts, disc brakes. All those things can now be made, and because of electricity availability. So we just have to recognize that manufacturing requires electricity, and that manufacturing ought to be a major contributor to the GDP of Nigeria. And I'm not, in fact, if you have very good manufacturing base, the oil industry is going to be so small in comparison.
So, Prof, we hear the discos, Gencos talking about subsidy because they say they're not charging reflective tariff. So who knows if government will insist on that. But how does that apply to you, to geometric power?
Well, we haven't asked for subsidy because what we focus on is providing reliable electricity. We believe that the people here will pay for power if they get it. And we're a regulated industry, so all the distribution company of geometric power, which is Power, is regulated. So we don't charge premium for reliable electricity. But we are confident that people would prefer not to be their own power providers, and that they would prefer to pay for power. The way the power, the regulator structures tariff is that they have bands. So if you have if you're getting more than 20 hours, then you are going to be getting. If you're getting 20, then you have a certain tariff that you will pay. If you're getting 18 hours, a certain tariff. So the people in Aba, who, as many of them are in business, they want the job. They want is to get the electricity. So that's just it. We think that we don't particularly, subsidy. Government is able to provide a subsidy for discos to be able to provide electricity because they're not getting cost-reflective tariff. One you can say that it is that kind of request is honest. It can be understood.
So do we say then that you're charging cost-reflective tariff?
We are not charging exactly cost-reflective tariff. I don't think any disco is charging cost-reflective tariff, but we're charging tariff that is certain to ensure that we don't lose the business itself.
Prof, one of the things that comes, and I'm really glad that at least you began to talk about some of these issues, particularly affordability for a good number of people who are going to be using it. Congratulations once again, by the way. But Mark asked you a question the other time about, how this goes with government. And a good number of people would remember that a number of other attempts as about the same time you started this project, in 2004 or thereabout. Such other attempts were made. Now, speak to the possibility of such a project as geometric power cascading across the country and the privileges, the contribution such would make to Nigeria's economy.
Oh, tremendous. I cannot look at think of the the blotter. That's the example I usually use. It's a blotter, an ink approach. So if you drop ink and a part of a blotter, then it begins to spread. And if you drop it at various places, then eventually the entire blotter would have ink. So if I look at the project that we have here, you can do the same thing, say, in Lagos, and in fact, you can do in Eko, you can do in Ikeja, you can do in Kano, you can do in Kaduna, various places where you have economic activity, industrial activity. And if you begin to look at the possibility of all of them eventually expanding, then that's what can help the country. You need to have a tightly coupled generation and distribution, not generation that there is no direct relationship between generation and distribution. You know, the way it was set up before, where you have generation companies selling power through NBET, and then to the distribution company. It was to ensure a period where the distribution companies become creditworthy to buy directly. So that direct relationship is what is important, whether the power is being sent through the transmission company or in the way that we have. We don't necessarily have to go through the transmission company. We take the power straight to the distribution company on a sub-transmission network, and then to the consumers of electricity. So it's totally possible for this to be replicated throughout the country, and it will be a very good way to not have to rely on the national grid power arrangement.
You know, Prof, having been Minister of Power, you definitely have some perspectives. I would rather use that than use the word information. Perspectives that can be helpful to, say, state governments, for instance. There was such an attempt in Lagos, you're aware. Is there a way that state governments can actually lead this front? One can just imagine the excitement, the joy in the heart of the governor, now Governor Oti, about this project, in the state. Speak to us about the potential capacity challenges that state governments can encounter should they decide to embark on such a project in their own states, so that the economic activities in the various states can be taken care of significantly. One of such examples, Prof, if I may add, is the huge losses that farmers make simply because what they call post-harvest loss. That will be greatly reduced. For instance, a number of people believe if power was available and they can take care of that situation using some form of technology backed by electricity. How can state governments take advantage of such an opportunity, particularly at this time?
Thank you. That's a very good question, because there's a law, there's an amendment of the Act, Electricity Act, that's now in force, which has given more strength to states to do something about electricity, in particular, have state regulation of power. But I think maybe in some states, they will misunderstand it and think that it's going to be an easy journey to do that. First, virtually all the electricity infrastructure in Nigeria is privately owned. And so for a state government to now begin to build power projects they either have to work with that private company that is in charge of, that's the owner of the network, or they have to build their own. And you have to understand that the network that exists now has been built over many, many, many years. So just even in Aba alone, you have thousands and thousands of kilometers of network, of power lines, thousands of transformers. So no government in Nigeria will try to undertake that. So you have to partner. So that partnership is very important. And so a governor that understands that partnership will be of tremendous use to them, will be good. If you look at just the power plant, to build a power plant, there are only 2 states, that have built major power plants in Nigeria, and that is Rivers State and Akwa State. But Rivers State power plants have been basically sold because it's difficult for a state to run a power plant. Difficult. So you have to still get private sector to do it professionally. The one of Akwa is there, and there are some constraints to it. I think that the governor is interested in seeing that it gets that power gets evacuated, because the power that is there, which is huge power that can be of great use in Nigeria, is somewhat stranded. So these are the things, and these are major investments that have been made by these 2 states. So we have to the governments can actually do a lot in terms of power, but they need to be able to play the government role in doing it. Government is an enabler. Government provides support that will make companies operating within their states to be effective. So if they do it like they want to just begin to build power plants and begin to build distribution infrastructure, that would be difficult to manage.
Well, your project, Geometric Power, took about 20 years.
If I may, there's another aspect where state governments can do a lot, like making an act like the power theft that all the schools encounter. The punishment for power theft, the state governments can do a lot to curb that. And that is something that also they can have to support.
Because I remember, I remember Mr. Fashola, when he was Minister of Power, talked about that a lot. But your project took about 20 years. Does it have to take 20 years, really? I mean, how long should it take so that at least the governors or the various governments can have an idea, of time and timing?
3 years.
This project can be executed in 3 years?
Yes.
With the right partnership, then?
With no roadblocks.
Okay. Now, gladly, the lead has been taken off through the amended laws and constitution and the rest of them. So now, for anyone, I mean, you have been in this space, you've talked about manufacturing, in fact, that's one of your specialty and all of that. What are the considerations? One of the issues that was also raised previously is the affordability of electricity in some quarters. We heard stories of some states in the country, and they said that they had too much power, too much electricity, and that they couldn't even afford, the electricity that was being supplied to them, that they didn't even want 24 hours because it was too costly for them. Speak to us about that one and how, because there are those who would say, just as you say, it's a heavy investment. It's a capital intensive project. So speak to us about affordability of, at least at the level of the consumers, and other considerations, challenges, and the rest of them that may get in the way.
Yes, thank you. One of the major things we are trying to do is to meter the customers, because we believe that with the smart meters, you decide how much electricity you consume, when you consume it. You're your own regulator of use of electricity. But and so it's not an estimated billing. Of course, metering is a very expensive endeavor as well. But I think that electricity is affordable. You just have to decide what you do. So energy management is what is important here, which a responsible distribution company has to also help the consumers to do, but also the consumers in particular should be able to manage how much electricity they consume. So I think that it's totally affordable. The tariff is not untoward when we look at the tariff, particularly the one that we see going to the consumers.
You talked about government as an enabler, and power is also an enabler. I'm glad to know that, you set it up in that particular environment because of its huge potential in the area of production. If you would project another 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years from now, what do you see this power plant, this geometric power, your organization,
you're hearing too much noise with that. It's a power plant.
Okay. Can you hear me now, sir? Can you hear me, sir?
Okay.
Okay. I don't know if you can we continue? Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you very well, but I'm just wondering when. Okay, now it's okay. It's a problem.
All right.
Doing processes.
Okay, so speak to us another 10, 15, 20 years from now. What do you see this power project enabling in that environment in terms of production and manufacturing?
I think that if the government does what it's supposed to do, which I see the government in terms of creating enabling infrastructure like the roads, providing security, that with electricity, this metropolis will begin to be like, I foresee it being what they tout itself. They say it is the Taiwan of Africa, which means that it's about production. We begin to see a multiplicity of different products being produced here. Already there are people calling us. Some are making some different types of products that want to come, and these are big companies that want to come here to establish. They want to come to establish, and some of them are coming from outside the country. Some of them are in country. They just want to come here. It's all about reliable electricity. So I foresee this tremendous growth here.
Now, talk to us about the possibility of the different states in the different regions that they have positioned themselves, creating some kind of regional electricity system in the event that one state or the other is unable to come up with it by themselves. As at the moment, or rather until recently, the law only enabled a national grid, a national power project. Now we have in different states, just such as the one that you have come up with now. Do you see a situation where in the event that one state is unable to come up with it by themselves, even with the partnerships, thinking, okay, maybe the people in this particular locality may not be able to help us sustain the business. Talk to us about the possibility of regional power systems, a step down, so to speak, from the national system that we had before.
In fact, you're thinking it right here, because that's what can actually happen. It's just that sometimes state governments tend to be thinking about what they can do by themselves. But collaboration can lead to tremendous growth, synergy will be achieved in that. There are just certain things the individual states may not be able to do, but jointly they can achieve. Already, there is nothing that stops states from collaborating in transmission of electricity. Before, you couldn't do 132 kV transmission, but now there's nothing that stops a state or a group of states from doing that. For example, if a power plant is in one state and the other state needs that power but doesn't have the fuel to produce the power, then the state that has the power plant can build the power plant, transmit, or can have that power plant there, transmit the power to the other state or other states. So this is totally possible, collaboration. And I think that this aggregation of the national grid, you still have to have a national grid, okay, for wheeling of power to anywhere. But you can have regional grid. You can have regional grids, which when you have, they're kind of semi-autonomous. And this is something I've advocated for, that it is the way for us to not be having a national grid collapse going forward.
Yeah, Prof, I mean, I see you say that you'll be distributing you prioritize local communities, of course, but you'll be distributing the surplus to the national grid. And speaking about that, what challenges do you see, and what do you think should happen? Because when you distribute to the national grid, you know the challenges that people talk about when it comes to the national grid.
Yes, of course, we will have the same challenges. Whatever challenge all the other GENCOs have in sending power to will be what we have. But the main challenge really is more about payment. It's not that you can't connect to the national grid. We will connect we are connected to national grid, actually. But when I say you put to the national grid, it's loosely said, because we could sell power across to the other states. Still, maybe it's not our own grid. Maybe it is even within Enugu Disco. We can sell power to with an agreement with the Enugu Disco, transmit the power that they are buying to, say, Umuahia, or to Owerri, or to Enugu, or to Nnewi. But it has to be that there is an understanding, there is an agreement. But it is still national grid, or you can use the national grid to transmit it. But there are some that are close by. We can use our own transmission line to send.
I mean, naturally, people would expect that conversation will happen. And in fact, they already think that there should be a conversation perhaps between yourself and other states to see how they can collaborate, I mean, in the region, to see how there can be a region-wide power supply so that other regions can look at this model, because this is first that is fully vertically integrated with embedded generation and distribution in the country. So it's something that other regions can indeed look and say, look, this is something we can do, because when we hear you say it can take just 3 years, any governor that comes in can actually embark on this. This is what the country needs, and that's why we can't talk about this enough. But could you tell us, as we wind down, what perhaps the future plans that you've got, maybe in the region or moving forward? What should we expect?
Actually, as far back as almost 8 years now, we had finished development of another power project in collaboration with General Electric. It's a much bigger power project. We're doing it in 2 phases. We have license for 1,080 megawatts power plant. And what we were going to do was to build the first phase, which is 560 megawatts. Anyway, it's a grid power, national grid power. But of course, what happened? It's totally completed in terms of development. When we say development, it means all the things you need to start it already there, except that the off-taker has to sign off. And who is the off-taker? The off-taker is the federal government of Nigeria. So we are going through all the processes. The financing was ready to go, but it didn't start. It's not just that project. A number of other companies that had reached that level, their projects stalled, and that's why today you don't have the last 8-9 years, you don't have any power plants that is commissioned, except what we are doing now.
Well, Prof, once again, we really have to celebrate your tenacity. I mean, a project that ought to take 3 years, taken far much longer, excuse me, and you're still staying at it and making sure that your dreams actually do come to life. That is proof of perseverance. But yesterday, some controversy broke out. My colleague, Seun Okinbaloye, was interviewing the governor of Abia State, and there were questions as to whether or not the Abia State government owns shares in Geometric. Do you want to shed a little more light on what the shareholder list looks like?
I won't talk about everybody, but I will say that Abia State, yes, did invest in 2020 when we needed to, when Averting Bank required that we have additional equity. So Abia State took up what now amounts to about 3.4% of 3.5% equity position in the project.
So the Abia State government has 3.5% equity in Geometric Power?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, that's...
All right, Prof. I mean, we do thank you very much indeed, and we're looking forward to see that the other projects you have also come on stream. This is the kind of narrative that the country needs to hear and needs to do no matter what. So thank you, congratulations, and all the best to yourself and the team.
Thank you very much, Chandler. Have a nice day, everyone.
All right. Well, there you go. That is indeed Professor Barth Nnaji, Chairman, Geometric Power Limited. This is very, very good indeed for business. I mean, you do need this to stabilize and to move forward, and this is what we need. So if it takes 3 years, what excuse can any state governor say we cannot do anything?
I mean, now, like it can be completed in one administration.
3 years, and the law has been signed now. States can generate their own power. So I think residents in different states have got to begin to ask their states and their states' House of Assembly the question. It shouldn't be business as usual. So if Aba can do it, why can't any other state do it? So these are the things. So gone are the days when politicians will come and tell us, well, this cannot be achieved anymore. because we've seen it happen in our lifetime. I know that several generations dealt us a hard blow, but we've seen leading lights, literally light at the end of the tunnel. So this is a very good example. And we'll be asking different states the questions too, what their power plan is. What is the plan? You can imagine how much companies spend with alternative power supply.
I really celebrate the people of Abia, in particular the people of Abia's Aba. I mean, knowing that a generation will finally come that would not say up NEPA, because they might not know what power outage will be. I mean, that is significant in many ways. And then just what is possible as a result of constant electricity, constant assured electricity. Just the thought of it, one begins to say, are you sure we will move to Abia State? Abia State at this?
Last night, I went to bed thinking about all of this. And then it was such that, look, different generations, younger generations, everybody will look and say, the country had dealt us a very hard blow, we want to take off. Everybody, they got their reasons. Granted, can't begrudge anyone. But there's a huge lesson for us all here. If Prof and the team can stay on this 20 years.
20 years.
How many can stay 5, 10, 15? So this is a huge lesson. So this is the narrative that Africa, as a matter of fact, these are the kind of narratives that we always have to keep saying. But we did tell you that it's good for business. So, of course, in Nnaji, I cannot disagree with this one. But well, business news is coming up next with her now.
That's right, Chamberlain and Mark, where this is good for business. And Chamberlain, I shared that thought with you. Perhaps we'll get a ticket to Abia State, or more specifically, Aba. Businesses will be good there. And I tell you, investors are always looking for an environment where it's easier to do their work and make gains. So if there's constant power in Aba, in Abia State and the environs, you would just see investors, especially those in the real sector, moving there. You don't have to preach the gospel to them. And yes, it is time, not just for the people in the states and local government, it is time for the media also to put the pressure on other state governments. If one governor can do it, if one administration can do it, other state governments should be able to do it. We want power. We'll carry our placard. Good morning and welcome to Business Morning. And yes, we're starting from the global space, which is our usual. Before we head back to Nigeria, we start with oil prices. It edged up on Friday and was set to end the week mostly higher as markets awaited an OPEC Plus decision on supply agreement for the second quarter amid deferring demand indicators and key consumer U.S. and China. And that U.S. inflation data did come out yesterday, just as expected. So I guess the market is not really moving this way or the other based on that already priced in. So Brent this morning is down 0.33% at $82.18 a barrel, while WTI is on the flip side gained 0.26%. Perhaps this has something to do with that CPI that was released yesterday at $78.46 for a barrel. WTI is on track for at least 2.5% increase this week, while Brent is holding near last week's settlement price. Brent has hovered comfortably above $80 for 3 weeks now. Then the survey shows that the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries pumped 26.42 million barrels per day this month. That was for February. That's 90,000 barrels more than what they did in January. And then a decision on extending the cut is expected first week from next week. That's why investors or traders in the oil sector or in the global oil space are holding their breath now to see if that cut is going to be moved further into March. Still in the global space now for the grains, Chicago soybeans inched up on Friday with the markets recovering from last session's 3-year low, although large South American supplies and lackluster demand for U.S. cargoes expected to curb the upside potential in prices. So let's look at the prices now. Corn was up 0.1% at $4.29 for a bushel. The most active soybean contract on the Chicago Board of Trade added 0.4%, $11.45 for a quarter of a bushel. The market dropped to its weakest since November 2020 at $11.28 for half a bushel on Thursday. We already told you about corn. We'll tell you about wheat now. It lost 0.5%. $5.73 for half a bushel. For the week, corn is up 3.7%, the market's first weekly rise in a month. Wheat has added less than 1%, and soybean was largely flat for the month. Well, short covering by speculative investors had helped grain market bounce off lows, but plentiful supply in the Americas and the Black Sea region is likely to keep a lid on prices. And talking about, that area, we see Russia wants to stop the export of oil for the next 6 months. They've been having some domestic issues. Of course, Ukraine has also been retaliating some of this attack and been affecting, their facilities. They've had a bit of shortage for domestic demand, and so they've decided to keep for 6 months, not to export. Of course, in the coming days, we will see how that's going to affect supply and consequently prices in the global space. Then we come back home here in Nigeria. The Central Bank of Nigeria says it is working with the International Monetary Fund, that's the IMF, to establish a comprehensive framework to address volatility in the foreign exchange market, a major factor we know. The CBN's Deputy Governor of Economic Policy, Mr. Muhammad Abdullahi, made it known in Abuja during a crucial strategic dialogue session with international investors. According to him, the framework allows the identification of the cause of volatility and immediate intervention by the central bank. He further highlights the CBN's proactive approach towards identifying and mitigating instances of undue volatility, whether emanating from the banking sector or from the Bureau de Change. We've talked about FX, and we cannot stop talking about it and the impact it's having on the economy. And we've seen the CBN has been busy. But of course, if we want to deal with inflation, it's not just about the CBN, and it's not just about the FX. Now, let's talk about the leading inflation number in the country now, surging past 34%. That's food inflation. And we've talked a number of times, even this week, about the surging price of commodity in Nigeria. So joining us to discuss that now is African farmer Nnaji. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Farm Credit NG. Good morning, Mr. Nnaji. Been a while.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. It's been a while.
Well, I can see no farmer, no future. I say no farmer, no today, because if you don't eat today, how do you even talk about the future? Well, it's been really difficult when it comes to food items in the country. Even locally produced food items have become so expensive. We've seen a lot of effort from the government. We've had a lot of cries. We've had protests. We've seen threats from labor unions. But it doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. The prices are still going up. A bag of rice now is heading to 90,000 naira, if not more in some areas. And yet, we've had intervention on rice. We've had dry season farming and all of that. Are we missing some things?
Yes, we're missing quite a lot. An understanding of how the sector works. There's theory, there's practical. And over the years, maybe in the last 2 administrations, we've not been able to actually plug it in. And what we really see is we have square pegs and round holes. That's bottom line. And a lot of beautiful ideas that we need to adapt before we implement. So, it's always that information. In agric in Nigeria, you see government throw money at agriculture instead of investing in information. So that's we don't have the right information, and the right information comes from players, not from people who have degrees. And that's where we have a lot of challenge. And we focus on the wrong things. Okay, so take for instance now, about 8 months ago, the administration did come out with the food security challenge when they spoke about the state of emergency on food. And in that statement then, they did say that availability was not a challenge, it was affordability. With that statement then, they focused on affordability, not availability. But we players knew that it was availability, because the prices were going high, input was going high, NAFDAC was clamping on some products we use, so the cost was going high, insurgency and all those things were there. So when they came up with that statement around affordability, not availability, we knew there was going to be crisis. And so the crisis we're facing today, part of it is focusing on affordability and not availability, just for them to understand later that availability was the challenge, not affordability. They could have done a few things about it, but because an understanding of the sector also is what is causing this. And everybody is as focused on the current challenge. May, June 2024, there would be a lot of issues that the government may not be able to handle again if they don't take actions. And we reached out to a couple of handlers of Mr. President.
So before you go on, what are some of those issues that we may face May, June, before you now go to how we can avert it?
Yes. A basket of tomatoes is likely to hit between 80,000 to 120,000. Why? Because climate change and also cost of production. In the north now, we're having reduced food supply. And so that's what warranted one of the governors to say, we won't take food, So around this time, every year, May, June, there's generally a shortage of tomatoes, fresh corn, and co across the country. The northerners use irrigation, and they use government irrigation. They stop the waters around March. Okay, so they don't have enough water and prepare to grow rice, because the lands they use is like fish pond. So the waters can't flow out, and it destroys things like vegetables. Now, the Southwest, or the South generally, have not leveraged the opportunity of the lands they have and some irrigation facilities. So there's always a major shock in May, June. So this year now, when the South is not preparing, and the North is facing insecurity and some challenges also, there's going to be a big challenge. And also, this factor, many people are not paying attention to it. When we began to force merchants to open grains, when we say they were hoarding, they run legitimate businesses, okay? And many of them are indebted to banks. Banks are facilitating those transactions. Now, government, the people in government don't understand that the merchants don't only own the grains, they own the trailers. So when it is time to bring the food in May, June, they may hit back, just like it happened in 2021. So government does not control the logistics. It's those same people that are making losses currently that would want to hike the prices. They control that chain. So understanding information, understanding how the sector works with the right information. Right now, we're not getting it right.
Is there any way to avert this bad picture?
There's a way to avert it. And like I said earlier, we've reached out. It's just that they're not listening to the who is who in government. What they need to do is to encourage or empower leveraging the river basins across the South. When I say South is Southwest, but mostly Southwest, okay, and North Central, to be able to produce. But there are a lot of technicalities involved in that production. You must be experienced to be able to do that. But just throwing money at it and say we want to do it will not work. Because culturally, the people, how they respond, when they respond, all these factors are missing, but something can still be done. Before, they could avert it. Now, they can manage it. Because they can't import tomatoes, even if they want to import from any country. Many of the countries look for tomatoes from Nigeria to take out.
And now even state governors are trying to protect their own people, yes. As you noted, even though that came kind of controversial, I think the state governor was not. So who is supposed to handle this? Is it the Ministry of Agriculture, Water Resources? Where do we go from here if we wanted to channel this message?
It has to be a marriage between the Ministry of Water Resources and the Ministry of Agriculture. Ministry of Agriculture does not have land. They have the parastatals, okay, that influence the value chain of agriculture. Ministry of Water Resources, they have the lands and they have the dams and they have the farmers. So it has to be a marriage, and that marriage, we're still not seeing it play out. Because if they have that right information, they ought to have taken that step now. The sweet potatoes that we can use as options for the yams that we did not plant 4 months ago is where we are today. The yams is expensive. So 4 months from now or 3 months from now, the new varieties that we have, many of them can deliver in 2.5 months. However, the cost of seed also is extremely expensive. And we don't have corn now. We don't have the seeds available, the quality corn. We don't have rice seeds available. So focusing on let's go and produce is not even the challenge now. How do we get the seed companies to be able to bring in the seeds and also leverage on the seed companies we have here? We've not supported the seed companies in Nigeria, so we may have to still bring some in. Verified ones that have been accepted by the parastatals in Nigeria that have been used in the country. We need government and private sector to work together to bring in some of these inputs now.
So it sounds like this hope that inflation will begin to taper towards the end of the year to next year, it sounds like it's still far-fetched. It's still far-fetched. If they don't engage the right practitioners. Okay, right now, because you see, things have gotten to a level where we can't manage some information again. We must say it as it is. Now, currently, the handlers of agriculture in the country are not experts. And I'm not talking about the minister. The minister is an administrator and a good one at that. But the people working at presidency, check their profiles. They are not agri experts with relevant knowledge. So we would keep going round and round. What position are you referring to now? You're not talking of the minister. The advisors, the assistants, check their profiles. They don't know the sector. So if they don't know the sector, no matter how Mr. President wants to change things, it can happen. But the good news is that in 3 months, we can record a dramatic change if they are listening to the right people. 3 months. And you say you've been trying to reach out. I have reached out. I just can't mention names. To no avail. To no avail. The who is who managing presidency and Mr. President. They're not listening. It's not real to them. This food crisis is not real, but May, June will be real. Perhaps they are too protected to feel what the people are feeling. They are. I've had one-on-one, not phone calls, but it's not real. And it's unfortunate that it's a big embarrassment to the president who has the opportunity to turn things around very fast. You have the private sector more than willing now, who are they're more patriotic. Everybody now is thinking about Nigeria, not who is in office, but the government, the people handling the government, they're not paying attention to leveraging that opportunity. And it does seem like, the president has a lot as we speak now. He should be in Qatar, so he would not be watching this program. So it's supposed to be his advisors, and the directors and all of that who are supposed to pass this message to him. Yes. But most likely, even if it gets to him, it's going to be diluted. He's not even supposed to... It might even have a political tone to it. You see, the beautiful thing that this administration has is the current minister of agriculture is a seasoned politician. Let's get it wrong. In Nigeria, you need a politician now with a challenge. You need a politician also at the helm of affairs who is good with administration and can work with experts. All these things should not get to the president. The advisors that speak to the president must be people, they call it special advisor. They must have special knowledge. So if you have people who don't have special knowledge, there's no special advice to give. Yeah, well, if they have special knowledge and they're not feeling the pain, they don't see it as reality, then you might as well not get it. But thank you so much for your time, the Chief Executive Officer of Farm Credit NG. Thank you for having me. All right, now let's take a break. When we come back, we're still on this, but we'll look at processing for exports. Perhaps the agribusiness can bring in some dollars. We'll talk about that after the break. Still discussing agriculture. This time we're discussing agro-processing for exports. And to discuss this is Mrs. Bosun Sholari. She's the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Daso Integrated Farms Limited. Thank you so much, Mrs. Sholari. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure being here with you.
Thank you so much. So, of course, we know that we ought to deal with domestic demands first and everything. But I really we just had that conversation just before you came in. So I'd like to talk to you. I know you deal in spices spices, herbs, tea, talking about processing some of this agricultural produce for export. We are looking for FX. So maybe we'll look for it from the agricultural space. Are we getting much from the agribusiness, talking about export, to boost our FX?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me being here again. I'm Bosunso Larin, the CEO of Dasun Integrated Farms Limited and Defield Foods. Now, let me first correct an impression that we're not getting enough for the local market. And that's what people have said. So why are people exporting? That's a faulty argument because one, you have, let's just be funny with figures. Let's say 1 million people are into that sector. Can everybody get stalls in the market? Can they get spaces in every supermarket? And the people are leaving their employment every day. They're coming into the labor market. They're looking for what to do. They're joining that sector. So you need to find how what they do can get outside. We have Africans that we all enjoy the same taste. So it now means, and then Nigerians are so all over the world. So that's a market that is there. Then two, those who even sell here, then you can expand. And then economies of scale come in. So when people keep saying that thing, I don't buy that idea. And don't.
So are you
join
saying
anybody.
that our export, our agribusiness is bringing in a lot of FX?
Not that. Now on FX that you have talked about.
Yes.
Nigeria will need to be deliberate and walk the talk. If you're looking for FX, because bulk of the people who are in agro-processing now are small businesses. And so there is a deliberate effort that should come from the government to be able to support them. It's unfortunate, 1 week ago, I was in one discussion, and somebody from an agency of government was saying, the federal government has done enough for small businesses, and they still keep clamoring for. They forget that in their office is a government that puts fuel when there is no light. Government pays for light. When he's going out for oversight functions, government pays fuel his vehicle. If he doesn't have a vehicle, government, they refund his expenses. But for every small business, they buy those things themselves. So those infrastructural issues are all what they work for. So having said those two, FX issues will continue to be a problem if government will not pay attention to support small businesses. Small businesses in the sense that we need standardization in their products so that it will be acceptable. Most of those things cost over 2 million. They cannot afford it. Is it not possible for government, when they seek for funding for developmental projects, to help people get standardization? Even if you will ask them to pay later, but they will get it and they can sell in the international market. Two, the funding support they will need. They need to buy, if they get funding difficult, if they find it difficult to get funding, or they get it at very high rates, it affects competitiveness in the international market.
I guess it's going to get even worse, Ms. Boss, because interest rate is now 22.75.
So
but what I've heard some people say is, just as that government person said, yes, we see and hear a lot of efforts of the federal government, but accessing it for small businesses, perhaps you could speak to that. If those things are there, the packages are there, the programs are there, but can small businesses access them?
The packages are there. I won't deny that. But how do they get them? You find a Nexim, you find DBN and Co. They tell you a bank must guarantee that facility for you. And banks have their own products to sell. I discussed with somebody one day and said, how can they now guarantee a product that's not their own? You want them to guarantee it because you want to sell your own product. So that's why most small businesses are not getting those funds. And then, so the banks just get those things lying down in their place, and they don't give it out to small businesses. And where they give it out, maybe man, no man. So if I don't know you now, I get there. They look, after they suffer you up and down, they tell you, they give you an excuse and you can't get it.
What about Bank of Agriculture, Bank of Industry, and all of that?
Bank of Industry, for me, I have had to encourage small businesses. Their own may take so long a time. I said, but since you cannot access from the banks, why not go and queue there? Even if in those days when that man will carry mats to the banks. So if you have to carry mats to BOI, to go and wait for 1 year, it pays you to go there because you will be getting at either a single rate or no more than 15%. So that's my advocacy to people. But you see, the truth is that how many, because people say, and this is one thing they do. You will bring your shoe today, one shoe today, they will say, bring left shoe. When you take it there, they call you next week, bring the right shoe. And I'm like, why can't you tell me what I need to bring at once? So those things still happen in all those places. And that's why when people mention BOI, I have gotten a loan there before, and I paid it back. They have asked me to come for it. But even with what is happening, especially from COVID era, it's like, don't go and take a loan that you can't sleep in the night for, and somebody will be pursuing you. So the best thing is that until I get a concrete export order, I'm not going to, but I'm putting the processes, so people should try and start a process and get somewhere so that it is not when you need it that you're not going to be running and say, don't mind them, they are no good. What have you done before that time? So let's all be ready to be able to access those things.
All right, Ms. Boson, as we round off now, what would you say, you talked about, yes, the packages are there, government have made the effort, but it's not getting to the people. What would you say would be the intentionality you talked about, maybe the first two steps, if you see it will convince you that, yes, the government is serious about boosting the activities around?
My number one would be from NAFDAC. NAFDAC tells you, now that they now do nano are those who can produce in their kitchen. Micro are those who don't produce in the kitchen. They have a mini facility. And then you now force two of them, they must do 5 products. And they say that's not what they're saying, but because you're telling me as a micro, you will register me with 37,500. And then if I have the 6th product and I have a facility that can do it, I'm going to pay 112,000. What for? Is that how we're going to sell? And that's why I'm saying government must be intentional. As a microprocessor, if I have my facility, why can't I do up to 10? Sometimes they will say contamination. Can't contamination occur even if you're doing one product? Should we make life difficult where there is no facility for funds and people are selling their assets to be able to fund their businesses? Should we keep making things difficult? NAFDAC should face their duty. Do more oversight functions, let people write their SOPs, how they want to produce, monitor it instead of saying they cannot. And then when they have to say it, you say 112. What are they going to be doing? What is 6th product? What's going to be different in the number you want to give me for that product?
So it still goes back to government, but this time it's NAFDAC to make it easier for people small businesses.
To thrive in business.
All right, we'll certainly have you back, Mrs. Bosun. Mrs. Bosun, so a very interesting conversation. CEO and founder of Daso Integrated Farms Limited. Thank you for your time. And wish you the best. Those spices, they stand for our culture, so we should spread it around the world.
Exactly, and the teas too, because you don't even need, they work for various health conditions. So it's not like you keep swallowing chemical.
They are natural.
They are natural, because when you're talking of moringa, bitter leaf, scent leaf, they're natural.
These are things we take for granted. Thank you so much for coming on the program. All right, let's just give you the market numbers before we head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio. NGX rebounded yesterday, first time in the week, but it was a good one, almost 1%, 0.72%, and gained 390 billion naira. But we're far away from the 56 trillion naira. We see the activity chart was almost green. We had only the deals, 9,650 in the red. Sectors, Fugas, they're back. The banking, all of them gained yesterday. As always, the banking sector was up more than 6%. Consumer goods, however, still down. Industrial goods almost unchanged. Insurance recovered a bit, 1.26. Oil and gas are still down right there. I think Seplat was part of those that drove it down. Top trades were the Fugas. The unlisted market yesterday was also negative, dropped 1.36%. Its market cap is still around 1.5 trillion naira. Activity, mostly green. Activity chart was all green anyway. Stock traded yesterday was just 8 for the unlisted market. We don't have the fixed income for today. But, well, that's as much we can take. Is back to you guys, Sunrise Daily.
Yes, welcome back to this end. So yes, we're joined by Nnaji Abubakar Gerima, the National President of IPMAN. He's here with us in the studios. Good morning and thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, good morning.
So we're talking about averting petrol scarcity, which is something that nobody wants to keep hearing this. And we know that IPMAN is equally as concerned in terms of importing petroleum products, capacity, ensuring that all the other players and regulatory bodies do what they have to do so that we are not faced time and again with shortage of this product. So could you start by telling us what is the current situation now about getting this product available to everybody and IPMAN's role in it?
Well, I know just of recent, we have just a small scarcity, and that scarcity is because of the strike by NATO. That is 2 days strike. And since the issue is being resolved, actually, if you go through the filling stations today, you will see that there is no scarcity. Most of our petrol stations are weighted, and we are waiting for the customers to come and buy the product. Presently, that is what is happening.
So, but what is it that we hear that IPMAN wants improved situation between the NNPC themselves to ensure that the market doesn't suffer any shortage whatsoever?
Well, you know, as far as independent petroleum marketers are concerned, we are having presently a good relationship between the IPMAN and the NNPC, because any time when they wanted to raise or to supply the products, they normally include us, especially in the retail market, whereby when we presented our ticket, we wait for loading, and we are loading our product as when due.
So do your members also import the product?
We don't normally import the product. The importation of the product is solely behind only NNPC. They are the only people who can be able to import the product presently.
Is that because of the laws or capacity?
No, it's not because of the law of capacity. It's because of the government policy. Because normally NNPC, they get an exchange rate that they can be able to buy the product. But we independent petroleum marketers, we cannot be able to import.
So IPMAN members cannot get the same rate that the NNPC gets?
Yes, really that is what is happening.
So has this been taken up either with IPMAN or the regular?
No, we are still negotiating.
With who?
With the government in such a way that the condition that the NNPC is getting, we too, independent marketers, we are supposed to be having that condition so that we can be able to import the product by ourselves.
So are your members getting favorable response?
Yes, we are getting favorable response because, you know, before, normally, when they are sharing this product, they only share it to the major marketers in terms of the supply. But now we discuss with the NNPC, they mentioned that actually they will be giving us our own quota of the supply. That is, as you know, that we independent petroleum marketers, we cover almost 85% of retail outlets in Nigeria. So now we discuss with the minister, and the minister agreed that he will be giving us our own quota of the supply.
What percentage? What
that is 50% of the Nigerian supply of the product.
50%?
Yes.
Who holds the other 50? NNPC?
The NNPC and the major marketers and the DAPMAN. Then they will share the remaining 50.
So IPMAN has a capacity if they give them 50%?
Yeah, definitely, because, you know, we are over 30,000 company members. And then we have over 150,000 retail outlets in the country. So automatically, since we are covering almost 85%, so if we get the 50% capacity, definitely you will see even the price of this petroleum product is going to reduce.
How?
Well, you know, presently, we normally buy through the third party. That is like to DAPMAN, major marketers, and even NNPC retail itself.
Oh, so the reason you're saying that the reason why NNPC retail is the price is lower is because they have the facility that IPMAN don't.
Yes.
So if IPMAN members get that facility, they'll resort to the same price or
yes,
perhaps
even lower.
Lower than NNPC?
Yes. If we can be able to get it direct, definitely, like now, if the PFI is given to the independent petroleum marketers, then automatically when we share it to our members, they will get a lower rate, and then we distribute it whereby our members will sell it at a lower rate to the masses.
But is there a timeline? Has the government given you a timeline as to when they can agree to this demand that you have made of getting the facility?
Yes, we have started negotiating with the Minister of Oil. And he approved that. By God's grace, he said very soon he will be giving us our PFI.
You know, I'm listening and I'm just wondering whether we're actually getting the true picture, because was it 2 or 3 days ago, you actually did hold a press conference about, your relationship with the NNPC, and there were complaints from IPMAN. That conference was hosted by your body, isn't that correct?
No, we didn't hold any conference.
There was a group that came up.
Yes, that one is just a group. We just recently conducted our election, whereby the whole Nigerians come choose me as the president of the association. But there is one thing in any association: when the association is being conducted, some people will feel like they are being aggrieved. So in fact, as far as the independent petroleum marketers is concerned, we doesn't have any challenges with the NNPC presently.
Okay, so you don't know those people who did that
Actually, conference. I didn't know them.
They are not your members?
They are not part of our members.
But they used IPMAN.
Well, it's just like now, when IPMAN is just like in Nigeria, when the election is being conducted, like now, as Bola Tinubu, the election has been conducted, and we know he's the president of the country. And, Obi failed the election together with Atiku. So that is how it is. So still they will say their mind. Obi and Atiku will say their mind.
So clearly there are divisions, and it's not like I said there are people whom you do not know. Are you trying your best? Are you trying to see how you can bring them back to the fold? Because you certainly need to present a united front, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, they spoke about certain challenges. I do not know if your own members are experiencing those challenges. And even within the sector, under this new deregulation era, we know that after the president said fuel subsidy is gone, a lot of things began to shift within the sector. Before that time, NNPC was sole importer of petroleum products as a result of subsidy that was being enjoyed by majority of Nigerians. However, now NNPC says, look, it is now an open buyer, open seller market. Anybody who has the capacity can go and bring in their own petroleum products and they can sell. That's what they have said the situation is, and that it is not up to government to give anybody foreign exchange. As a matter of fact, the NNPC says that it has its own access to foreign exchange because it's also involved in other parts of the market, the upstream sector. It sells crude on behalf of Nigeria, etc. And that's why it's able to determine its own rate. And so it is not bound by, the constraints that other people are bound by. I do not know how it is that this, how will I put it now, these constraints are currently affecting how it is that your members are, at what price they're currently selling petroleum products.
Well, just like what I have said, the NNPC, they are the sole importer now. And we independent petroleum marketers, we fully rely on them presently. And actually, if you contact the NNPC, already they said there is no subsidy, which is true. And Mr. President too said there is no subsidy. So that is what is going on. And that is the reason why you see the way the system is going now. We independent petroleum marketers, we rely on the NNPC supply presently.
You say there's no subsidy, and that is true. But people who have looked at the landing cost of petrol and also the exchange rate differentials say that it does appear that there is now some subsidy somewhere, which is maybe not exactly with subsidy paid by government, but in forms of under-recovery by the NNPC. So when you said that there is no subsidy, is that a truly correct statement?
Yes, definitely. When Mr. President come out, specifically he said there is no subsidy. And then the NNPC too said no subsidy. Then who are you to say that there is subsidy?
Yeah, but I'm asking if that's the reality. I mean, if dollar is currently trading at 1,600, at the time when Mr. President made this statement, dollar was still around 750 thereabouts on the parallel market. But now we understand there's a rate convergence because there was a floating of the naira. And we now understand that, naira is now doing about 1,600 naira to the dollar. By the time products land at the port. And that's why it's difficult for your members to import. Isn't that correct?
Well, actually, probably it's part of it. But generally, I cannot, because there are some issues which I know by the time when all these issues have been solved, we can start importing.
How are you hoping that these issues will be solved? Are you hoping
it will be solved now because, Mr. President has already kickstarted the program of the CNG, which is an initiated idea by we independent petroleum marketers. The time when they said they will remove the subsidy, we say, okay, it's good. Let the government try to bring another alternative so that at least the hardship of subsidy will be reduced. And Mr. President has kickstarted the program for CNG, whereby just of recent we have done a forum together with the Minister of Gas. We hold a meeting together with him and we write all our submission. We independent petroleum marketers.
So I'm just wondering then, because when I listen to, I'm wondering, are you just trying to, because I know that a lot of Nigerians are watching you, and as somebody who is very responsible, you have to be careful of the things you say on television. That's normal. But are you saying this because you just want to keep the relationship with the NNPC? Or are your members truly going through some difficulties? Because we also know that independent petroleum marketers are not selling at the same rate that the NNPC is selling. We see queues at NNPC filling stations. Meanwhile, a lot of stations are they have the products, but their rates are different, and people are not queuing up there.
That is just what I tell you. The reason why you have been seeing that queue is because of the price. And now we have started discussing this issue together with NNPC, that they should give us our allocation direct. And they said they accepted. They will soon start giving us our allocation direct.
Did they give you a date?
No, actually there is no date, but they said very soon they will give us. So I am expecting maybe probably next week or the other week they will start giving us, whereby you will be seeing queue again in the independent petroleum marketers filling station. Immediately when we get the direct allocation, definitely we are selling maybe a little bit below, because when we get the direct allocation through the NNPC, we sell below their rate.
What is Ipman's view about the Port Harcourt and Dangote refinery?
It's a welcome development. We are very happy because immediately when Port Harcourt refinery started production, so definitely it may reduce all this importation that we fully rely on, and then we started purchasing direct through the NNPC.
But it's March now, months after the said time that it will kick off, the Port Harcourt one, and do you have any information as to when that is going to kick off, if it will affect anything?
Actually, we doesn't have an actual time, but all what we know is a process. So since they have already announced they will kickstart very soon, we're expecting them. Because by the time when they started, definitely you will see.
When you say that Ipman, hope I understand you, that Ipman actually initiated the CNG idea, is that right? So wait, did you say that Ipman just muted the idea, or because many still haven't seen a lot in terms of availability of the CNG, or how many stations have it? What's going on with that?
All this thing is a process. It's not just something that you will just come and start, you say you can start it in one day. So the idea is still going. We have been contacting government, we have been telling them our difficulties, and they have been listening to us.
What do they need to do?
Just like NIPCO now.
Yeah.
The NIPCO has already started conversion, And they have started even putting the daughter filling stations in some of their filling stations.
Is there any IPMAN facility that is, working aggressively on CNG?
Yes, you know NIPCO is part of IPMAN.
Apart from NIPCO.
It's the same thing now. It's our facility. It's our facility.
So everybody has to wait for NIPCO?
Not to wait. You know, since the issue has been kick-started in our facility, we too, our members, are going to join that facility and start. We are on the process. We are not sleeping day and night. We are on it.
When
because,
do we expect?
the pain that you see Nigerians are feeling, we too are feeling it, especially we independent marketers. Because most of our filling stations are in remote areas. And there is no market because of the removal of that subsidy. The market is coming down. Therefore, we have to think for another alternative. And that is what we have been doing.
Do you check your members so that, the ones that are in remote areas, probably near the border, do you check to ensure that they're not part of those smuggling fuel out of the country?
Smuggling, a registered filling station at the border. You have your filling station. How will you carry their product outside? It's only those who doesn't have filling station that you are expecting to carry their product outside.
Well, that's not strange. That's not news. This was the practice for many years. People talking about how filling stations that are sited kilometers to Nigeria's borders are not exactly filling stations to serve the Nigerian people. They were conduits for siphoning this petrol outside of Nigeria. You've not heard that before?
I have been hearing about it, but you cannot say people they will not say their mind. But in reality, we independent petroleum marketers were the owners of the filling stations. And you have to discharge it in your filling station and sell the product to the masses. In most of the cases, before even that product comes, you are out of stock.
You know that there was a time when the NNPC shut down filling stations within certain kilometers of Nigeria's borders. You're aware of that time?
Yes, I'm aware. And we cooperate with them because what they tell us, they said they are thinking about the insecurity, this and that, this and that. That is just what they have said.
Okay. I do not know.
Not because we independent marketers are smuggling this product out. An independent marketer will never struggle any product out because he has a filling station.
So who are those that smuggle it?
Actually, I cannot say. But we have the securities. Because if it's independent petroleum marketers are smuggling this product out, by now you will see them on the paper.
Do your members feel threatened by what is currently going on, the uncertainty? Because some people have said that there's so much uncertainty with the market, with the naira volatility against the dollar, etc. Do they feel shaken by what is currently happening in the country?
No, our shaking is just a situation whereby we are not getting our product direct. That is just our shaking.
That's the only problem you have?
That is the major problem
because
that we have.
I have noticed, as somebody who drives quite a bit around the city, even in the city of Abuja, we noticed that quite a number of stations seem to be selling their outlets to the NNPC, or the NNPC is acquiring them, is one of them. Yeah. And a number of them are independent marketers.
That is the issue that we wanted to prevent. That is why we are there.
So what's making your members sell off their stations?
Yes, if you are not having the same rate with what your business partner is selling, then you have to think another way. So that is the reason now we put pressure, much pressure, to the NNPC. We say, look, these private depot owners that you have been giving products, they doesn't have filling station. So you are giving them product, they doesn't have filling station, we have to go through them and buy the product at an expensive rate. And when we come with discharge in our filling station, we cannot be able to sell. We say for that, we independent marketers, since we have our filling station, give us this product direct.
But NNPC must find somewhere to store its products when it brings them into the country. It cannot take them directly from the ship to filling stations. It has to find a place to discharge them first. That's where this private depot owners come in.
Yes, but they can hire it. Then discharge, then they tell us we go and pick it there direct. It's the same thing.
The cost is certainly going to be transferred somewhere. Somebody has to pay those people who own those depots.
Which of the cost? We are ready to bear any cost. provided that we can get the product direct. Because, when we get it direct, we are the owners of the filling station. 85%, I tell you. Look at 85%. Is this a small number? It's not a small number. It's a very big number.
Okay, my colleague or our colleague Ayo has more questions for you.
Well, thank you, Mark. Just one or two things to raise with you, Alhaji Garima. You mentioned the NMDPRA in your press conference as well. Is there a role for them in this melee, in all of the conversations that we're having, since you're already chummy with the NNPC? How about the NMDPRA and the tariffs that you claim that they add, maybe incessantly? You call the federal government to call them to order.
Well, NDPPRA, they are part of our regulators. And just of recent, we contacted them about the issue of our past petroleum equalization payment, the debt that they are owing us. And actually, they tried their best, because just of recent, they have paid almost getting to 13 billion naira to our marketers, even though the rate is more than that. But we just bear with them. They give us a time limit, which they said they can be able to pay us this our money. And then we bring the issue of the renewal of license. We tell them the amount of money that they are putting now for the renewal license is a little bit higher. So they say we should come and meet them so that they can be able to see how they will reduce the rate to us.
Now, and how one will wonder how that kind of conversation will affect the pump price of fuel.
And the conversation, actually, that one will not affect the price of fuel. But the only thing it will encourage, especially in terms of money, it will encourage the marketers to participate in other things that will assist the government. Like this issue of the CNG. Immediately when we get our money through the NDPPRA, they pay us all our money. Definitely we may fully go into Mr. President's agenda on CNG, because that requires a huge amount of money. And the only way the government can be able to succeed on this CNG issue till there is support through the independent petroleum marketers.
All right, well, just one more issue from me. I mean, you have also spoken to the fact, or you also mentioned at that press conference, that a situation where the NNPC is both the major supplier as well as a competitor with members of IPMAN is a concern for you. How has that issue been resolved to the extent that it will not affect the pump price of fuel? Do you see a situation where your members will sell at exactly the same price as NNPC fuel stations?
Well, we didn't hold any press conference at the moment. But the only thing, all what I know, is all what we are looking the NNPC to do for us. Let them, the way they have been giving major marketers, Moman and Daffman, and even itself, NNPC, let them, the way they have been giving them product, let them give us product that way, through the PFI. So that we too, we can buy product through them direct, not to go through the third party. That is our major problem.
So we have no problems with supply. Where Nigerians should not fear any disruptions in supply of petrol.
Honestly, there is no any problem in terms of the supply. You can go out and see. Most of our independent petroleum marketers has fuel. You go Rano, Ewa and Shafa. All those marketers, you go, you will see there is availability of product in their filling station. But our major challenge is the cost.
680 sometimes.
Well, I cannot specifically mention the rate. But
I can mention, because I've seen it. I buy it.
But all what I know...
when I look at it, oh, God.
All what I know here in Abuja, NNPC is selling at the rate of 617. And me, I went to my members in Abuja to start selling this product at the rate of 610 or below.
All right. We'll just certainly hope that, we are greatly positively affected by that geometric power. So optimistic this Friday morning. But I have to thank you for coming on, except that the CNG, people need a date. They want to know what's going on, when. So thank you for coming on.
So thank you very much.
Alhaji Abubakar Garima, National President of IPMAN. Well, that is the show today, and it's been a pleasure, at least allowing us be in your homes while you watch. So let's go all out there and be positive, because if, again, that's going to be an example to come for a very long time, geometric power, actually. State governors, he said it takes 3 years. 3 years. So if a governor comes in, even in your first term, if it's the only term you do as a governor, there can be power supply. So there are no excuses moving forward. Thank you all for watching. I'm Chamberlain Uso. Goodbye.
Indeed, a very inspiring time we've had here on Sunrise Daily, speaking with Professor Barth Nnaji. And also being reassured that there is no problem with petrol supply. So fret not, says IPMAN. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
And if keeping fit is an issue for you, dance is a very good way to go. So dance this weekend. I'm Makinde. Do have a wonderful one.